Hey guys, it's Mr. Francie here, and it's time for my next reading vlog. This vlog will cover from the 26th of January, 27th of January through to the 3rd of February, and I'm hoping to be a little more consistent with the day that I do my reading vlogs. I'm going to try and do them every Sunday. Today is Monday, but anyway, enough of that. So we're in February, yay! Second month of the year, time to get moving into all these books and discuss what I am reading at the moment. Let's start off with The Kiss of Deception. Now, I spoke about this in my last reading vlog, how it was an audiobook. I couldn't sleep, so I started listening to an audiobook, and it was this one. It was recommended by a booktuber. Well, not really directly. It was more indirectly recommended by a booktuber who said she was going to potentially reread this series, the Remnant Chronicles series. And as I was saying in my last reading vlog, from the moment I started listening to this audiobook, I was really intrigued because the beginning of this book is just really intriguing. But I have to be honest with you, I am considering DNFing this book because it's just not going where I thought it was going to go. Without giving away too many spoilers, the opening of the book starts off really dramatically. There is a ritual that is taking place, and it's a very dramatic ritual, and the protagonist is going to go off and marry some guy that there's an arranged marriage that she's been arranged to marry a prince from another kingdom. And the bigger picture of this marriage is that it would allow both kingdoms that are minuscule in and of themselves to align and become a much bigger aligned kingdom, I guess. Anyway, so we find out at the beginning of the book that she has these powers, but they haven't surfaced yet. And I thought, okay, at some point these powers are going to surface. What I will give away is that the wedding does not happen because the protagonist is such a headstrong, intelligent person that she ends up running away right before the wedding starts with her servant, I guess you could say. But see, the problem is after they've run away and they start, they camp the first night that they've run away, they have these discussions, and that's fine, and it's all great, but then the rest of the time they're kind of traveling, and then they get to this other place that they want to go to, and they start working there in disguise, but the book is no longer interesting me as much as it has been. I'm 3/4 of the way through this audiobook, and I was at a place last week where any free moment that I had, I was going right back to that audiobook because I loved it so much, where I'm now at the point where, I don't know, there's really nothing motivating me to go back to it. So if this time next week I still haven't picked it up, or I still haven't gone back to the audiobook, then I will DNF that one. It's just because to me it doesn't really seem to be going anywhere at all. Now that they've gotten to this place they want to go to, and they're working, the princess and the servant, they're working somewhere as incognito as they can. It really doesn't seem to be going anywhere for me. So very much potentially going to DNF this book, but we'll wait and see. I'll let you know next week. The second book that I'm still reading is Personal Demons, and I was limited by my book club as to how much I can read with this. Coming into the book club last night, I had read 20 chapters, which is what we were meant to read, and we spoke about it. Sorry, no, that's not true. I had read 15 chapters. There are 23. At the conclusion of the book club, it was actually decided that we wouldn't read 5 chapters as we always did. Because there were 8 chapters left, we decided unanimously that we would read the rest of the book and before the next book club on Sunday. And I am currently at chapter 20, so I've got 3 chapters. I believe it's chapter 20 anyway. Just double check that. I've actually started chapter 20. I'm halfway through chapter 20. This book is now finally getting interesting. I mean, It took a long time to get there, and that was a major letdown for me. I feel that both books that I started reading in January, the one that I finished, The Replacements, and this one, they both had such slow starts that, yeah, it was more about me pushing myself to get through them. From what I'm seeing at the moment, I'm actually really enjoying where I'm at right now because it's much more high fantasy than it was. So basically, the premise is that there is an angel and a demon that are trying to tag the soul of a human, and that's fine, but then it turned into a romance novel for 3/4 of the novel. But now that I'm at the last quarter, the human now knows what's going on. As the reader, we now know why her soul needs to be tagged. There's a reason, we never knew why, but now we know. And now it's becoming really interesting. But I still don't feel it's enough for me to want to read, if there is another book in the series, the next one, or, that I would want to reread this book. But for where I'm at right now, it is much better than it was, so I'm at least happy with that, and I'm hoping to finish this book by the end of this evening, and then at least this book will be completed, and then I can do a review on that one. Speaking of reviews, I'm just going to quickly pause in my reading vlog and update you guys on what's going to be happening with my reviews from now on. When I first started reading this book, I was doing spoiler reviews for every 5 or so chapters, and I'm not going to do that anymore. I also did a part 1 review of The Replacement. I have now done part 2, and you probably have seen that one by now, that it's available anyway. So what I'm doing with The Replacement and this book and books from now on is I'm going to have a playlist called Reviews, and there will literally just be one video reviewing the book. I'm not going to be doing, 5 chapters in, let's do a review. Okay, now we're 10 chapters in, let's review the next 5 chapters, because it just takes up way too much of my time, so I'm not going to do that anymore. But yeah, so hoping to finish this one by the end of tonight, and if I do, then I will most likely review this book tomorrow as my second completed book for the year. So we'll see how that goes. Keep an eye out on the channel. The third book that I'm reading, I was really excited to start, and this book is Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. There was so much said about this book. There is so much hype about this book that I couldn't wait to begin. Full disclosure, I opened the book and my first thought was, the writing is very squished. I'm sorry, but it is. I'm going to see if I can get to the first page. Sorry, just try and get to page 1. Okay, page 1's not going to help, but I'll go to page 2 and 3. It's very squished, where if I were to compare this to a page with Personal Demons, Personal Demons is a much easier read. The book is a lot bigger. The writing is a lot bigger as well, where the writing is much smaller in this book and it is much more squished together. So I kind of went into the, not the first page, but the second and third page going, oh my gosh, this is a lot. And not only is it really squished and really tiny, which is fine. Like, I should wear glasses, but I don't need them for reading. I'm more the opposite. I require glasses for distance. So I don't need writing to be large. This is fine. I can read the writing. The size doesn't bother me. But the fact that it's so tiny, it did kind of deter me a little bit. Now, the next thing I need to discuss about Mistborn first of all, I need to admit that I've never read a Brandon Sanderson book before. I had no idea of his writing style, and oh my gosh, this is, oh wow, it's overwhelming. Brandon Sanderson's writing is very overwhelming for me to read when I am used to books like Personal Demons, The Replacement, Harry Potter, those sorts of books. Now, this is an adult fantasy book, and I have apparently been reading young adult fantasy books for most of the books that I've read, so I understand that an adult version should be different to a young adult version of a book, but Brandon Sanderson is extremely descriptive and it's almost a bit too much for me. There are so many elements playing out in this book that it's extremely overwhelming to read. So anyway, after about 3 pages, I decided to, because I was going to make a hasty decision, and I'll, again, full disclosure and full transparency here, after about 2.5, 3 pages, I thought, you know what, I think I might just DNF this book, which would be really sad because I had actually purchased, and I don't purchase books, and if I do, I purchase them secondhand. I don't purchase them brand new. I had, you guys saw this when I did the unboxing and the TBR for February, my TBR for February, and so I purchased the first 3 books, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've purchased all these 3 books, and I'm not even getting through the first 3 pages of book 1. What I ended up doing was I found the audiobook version, and I decided that what I would do would be to listen to the audiobook version while reading along with the book, the physical book itself. This made a massive difference to me. The audiobook is really, really well done. I just have one gripe with the audiobook, which I'll talk about in just a moment, but the music is really, really, really well done. The actors are amazing. The narrator is fantastic, and so it really gets you lost into the book, and I do love the experience I'm having with Mistborn at the moment, in large part thanks to the audiobook. Had I just been going ahead and reading it on my own, I don't know if I would have been able to enjoy it as much as I am with the audiobook because of just how overwhelming Brandon Sanderson's writing style is. It's just a bit much for me, and I didn't think I would find a limitation within myself when it came to reading, but Brandon Sanderson's writing style, it is, as I say, it's just a bit much for me. But that's fine. Now that I'm listening to the audiobook, it is really, really interesting, and I'm glad that I stuck it out because I am now up to chapter 6, which is page 104, and I'm really glad that I stuck it out to this point because in the beginning, it's very much here, there, and everywhere, and I literally mean that. We go from one scene in the prologue where something is playing out to another scene in chapter 1 where something else is playing out, to another scene towards the end of chapter 1 where something else is playing out, and then finally in chapter 2, we're now piecing those 3 different scenes with 3 completely different sets of characters. We're now bringing them together, and I finally know who the main characters are because I was questioning it within the first chapter, after reading the prologue in the first chapter. During that time, of reading the prologue in the first chapter, I was questioning who the main character is, who is the Mistborn, and, who are the main characters? I'm going, okay, is it this one? Is it that one? Is it any myriad of the other 30, 40, 50 characters we've been introduced to so far in the book? And that's another thing you guys know that I don't like. I don't like when an author will just shove 50 characters down a reader's throat, in the first couple of chapters. I don't appreciate that because it's too many to keep an eye on. However, we're now really getting into the crux of the story, at least beginning it anyway, and I do feel like Brandon Sanderson has established 3 main characters. We have a female character who is either the protagonist or she is the second main character. So, yeah, and I love her. Her name is Vin. I don't want to give too much away about the book, but I will say that Vin found herself as part of this group that were mistreating her, but now she's no longer with that group anymore, or she might still be with the group, I don't know, but she's now working with someone else, and they're not mistreating her. So I really do appreciate that. The main character seems to be this guy, if he is the main, as I say, I don't know if Vin is the main character or if this guy is the main character. Kelsia is the main character, but I'll work it out. Kelsia is this guy who, he kind of reminds me of the whole Robin Hood deal, in that his mindset is more steal from the rich, give to the poor kind of thing. And I appreciate that. And then he has his sidekick, who I think his name is Doxson. I think that's what his name is. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments below. And Doxson, sometimes he'll question things that Kelsia will say, but for the most part, he's extremely loyal to Kelsia. Kelsia has decided to do this job. He's taking on this project that he's going to do that's going to assist everyone. Okay? And so he's bringing together these select people to assist him. What we work out very quickly, and I would say by the beginning or towards the end of chapter 2, which again I appreciate because it's only 2 chapters in, unlike other books, The Replacement. Anyway, we got 100 pages. We begin to learn the magic system. Okay, we begin to learn that there are beings known as mistings, there are beings known as mistborns, and I'm appreciating learning more about this. In fact, towards the halfway point, I believe it was about the halfway point of chapter 3 to the end of chapter 3, we have this action sequence that plays out between the guy who I just said, Kelsia, still trying to get used to the names, Kelsia and these guys that he's battling, let's say, and we get to understand his magic. And the magic that occurs in Mistborn is elemental magic, which is something that when I first heard that there is elemental magic used, I didn't take it as a spoiler because that could mean anything to do with elements. I'm going to explain a little bit about what it is, but not enough to be a spoiler. Basically, elemental magic, for the sake of Kelsia, is that he can use elements to assist him. And I'll give you a sneak peek with one of the things that he can do. He can either push or pull against an element. So he needs to travel somewhere, but unlike, other fantasy books I've read where, people can, or beings can just go from one place to another in the blink of an eye. It doesn't really work that way in this book. So he will drop a coin onto the floor and then he'll push against the coin, which kind of allows him to... Sanderson makes sure to say that he's not flying, but it's almost like he bounces off the energy of the coin. And so he's able to push against elements so that he bounces off of them and moves about that way. That's at least one example anyway. But look, so far it's an interesting read. I feel like we are beginning to really move with this book. I feel like Brandon Sanderson has been taking a little while to, do some world building. And I feel like there will be a lot more world building that's going to occur because I need to understand more about Mistborns and how that all works. But for the most part, I really do appreciate this novel with where I'm at now. Had I DNF'd this book before the end of the prologue, let alone had I DNF'd this book at the end of chapter 1, I would not have gotten to read what I have read at the moment, which really does have me enticed. And I'm looking forward to seeing how this is going to go with this project that Kelsia has going and what's going to happen with Vin. And just really appreciating that magic is being used really early on in the novel. Thank you, Brandon Sanderson, because other authors, they like to wait, let's wait till we hit 100 pages. And Yovanov. Anyway, so I'm really enjoying Mistborn, and I'm really grateful for the audio. Now, I did mention that there is one thing that I don't like about the audio, and I'm going to say what it is because I just find it funny because I don't know what happened here behind the scenes, but unlike other audiobooks that I've listened to in the past where you have one narrator who's basically just doing the whole thing, this audio seems like they have a cast of people who are doing the audio, and so everyone has a role to play, and like there are probably 10, 15, 20 humans who are playing a role in this audio rather than just one. And of course there's music and sound effects and other things, so it's really all encompassing, and that's really amazing. So what I am doing here is literally nitpicking at one thing that really annoys me, but anyway, because it's not in the books and they've added it to the audio and I don't know why. Every time, I can't emphasize that enough, every time a character sits down, they sigh, and I don't get why. I don't know about you, but I don't sit in a chair and sigh. Maybe if I've had a long, arduous day of heavy lifting, long walking, and I'm really exhausted and I sit down, then I'll sigh. But every single time, a character might just get up, take a few steps and sit down. They sit down and go... Why are you sighing when you're sitting in a seat? It doesn't make sense to me, and it's not written in the book. It doesn't say, for example, Kelsia sat down in the chair and sighed. It says Kelsia sat down and said, da da da. So Kelsia sits down and goes, and then talks, and I don't know, why are we sighing when we're sitting in a chair? It's a really small thing that I'm nitpicking at, but it's just really annoying to hear every single character sigh every single time they sit. It just doesn't make sense to me. Excuse me. At all. But again, I really do appreciate that I am, working through this book. I don't know if I would be able to, even now, wean myself off of the audiobook and then just start reading it on my own. I don't know. Time will tell. But at the moment, I am very much appreciating the audiobook. And to add another element, I'm appreciating listening to the audiobook with the great acting and the fantastic narrating, the wonderful sound effects, the amazing music. I'm absolutely loving that because it takes it to another level. But at the same time, I'm appreciating that I'm still reading the book while listening to the audio. Where with the audio for The Kiss of Deception, I actually don't have this book at the moment, though. Funny story about that. Just today, I got a text from my local library that I joined last week telling me that the book that I reserved, the actual physical book of The Kiss of Deception, has arrived at my library. And I don't know, I'm thinking about whether or not to pick it up. I'm really going, is it worth? I'll absolutely pick it up, but do I pick it up and put it straight into the returns pile and straight away return it? Or do I actually pick it up, take it home and maybe start reading it as a physical book? I don't know. But one thing I do know about Kiss of Deception is that it's not going where I thought it was going to go. It is way more human-landier than I would like. Mistborn has the potential to be looked upon as a human-landier book. However, it is not, and I'll tell you why it's not. Mistborn is set in a completely fantastical world, okay? It is a world that is not of our world, and there are things that happen in this world that you may consider to be human. For example, a character sitting down on a chair, a character walking around, characters that work, so on and so forth. There are human aspects in the book, but the world itself is a completely different world. In fact, there are a group of beings, although I would still call them human beings, but anyway, there's a group of beings in this world known as the Skaa. I love that word, by the way. It's spelled S-K-A-A, the Skaa. The Skaa do seem like... There's a word that I'm not going to say because it would give it away, but there's a word that I can associate the Skaa with that we would use in Humanlandia, but still, the Skaa still seem like a fantastical group of beings, despite the fact that as a whole, because I have to be very specific here, as a whole, the Skaa don't have magical powers or anything that's special about them. they're still a fantastical group of beings because it's from a completely fantastical world that is not of our own. So I do really appreciate that. But anyway, time will tell where we do go with Mistborn, but one thing that's keeping me going with Mistborn is the fact that magic is being used, and it was used early enough for me to really appreciate it. But anyway, we'll see how we go. One thing that I am questioning about my taste in reading is, do I love fantasy novels, or is the genre of novel that I love not necessarily fantasy? I'm going to have to do some research on this, but yeah, I don't know. I'm questioning it at this point whether I like fantasy or whether fantasy means something else to what I think it means. Because when I say fantasy, I mean worlds of magic. I want magic to occur. Or if it's not magic, then I want there to be beings in this world. But yeah, also need to make a very big point that I don't want these beings to be hunted, and we're reading this book from the perspective of the humans. There was a show, Salem. Yeah, the TV show Salem was all about witches, but it was witches in a very dark light, and the show was more based around the humans trying to capture the witches than the witches themselves, and that's not what I'm after. But if fantasy is all-encompassing, including magic and actual beings, then I'm okay with that. But if fantasy is about, I'm just going to say this, medieval Knights of the Round Table, sword-on-sword combat, I'm not about fantasy. So maybe I'm looking more for a supernatural genre. But anyway, that's just my thoughts of where I am at with, what is my favorite genre? Is it actually fantasy? So, once again, going quickly back through and wrapping all of this up, Kiss of Deception, I have listened to a little bit of it at the beginning of the week, but then I didn't really, haven't really gone back to it. I don't know if I'm going to DNF it or not. Will the fact that my library has this now available for me to pick up going to change my mind? Time will tell. You'll find out next week. Personal Demons I will definitely have finished by the end of tonight, and if I don't, then it will definitely be finished by the end of tomorrow. But I've got 3 chapters, so I don't think I think it will be done by tonight. I don't think it will take any longer than that. And then I'll do my review on my just one, on Personal Demons. And Mistborn going really well. Really appreciating the fact that I do have the audio with this one as well. Now, in my monthly TBR, I did include The Black Witch and Vampire Academy Volume 1, and I am planning on reading those as well. I'm going to choose one of them and read them alongside Mistborn, the difference being that I want a book that does not require an audiobook for me to be able to get through it. I want to go with Vampire Academy so much, but because I have borrowed, I don't know why I'm holding this up while I'm talking about Vampire Academy, but anyway, because I have borrowed The Black Witch from my library, and I don't remember how long I get to have this book, and it is a tome, I probably will start with Black Witch and try and make my way through that one. Speaking of tome, can we just quickly make a quick point about this book, Mistborn? So, I didn't say this, at least I don't think I said it in my monthly TBR for February, but Mistborn is a tome. It has 600 and something pages. I just saw it a moment ago and I've just forgotten what it was, so I'll just quickly relook. 657 pages. This is definitely a tome. So when I picked this up thinking it's going to be a 300, 400 page book, I was definitely wrong. So after now being at page 104, I might have been a quarter of the way through. I'm not. There's over 600 pages in this book, so it's going to take me a lot longer than I thought it was going to take me to get through it. So I'm glad in many ways that I only have 3 books to get through for this month. Outside of Personal Demons, I have 3 books to get through this month after tonight, because it should be done tonight. Let's hope so. 3 books to get through for this month, considering 2 of them are tomes. So that's going to be a ton of reading, and if I get through all of that, I'm looking at over 1,500 pages worth of reading, if I'm not including Personal Demons, to get through this month, which is a lot more than I got through in January. But anyway, we'll see how we go. Wrapping up this week's reading vlog, saying that, yeah, we'll see. Kiss of Deception, most likely a DNF. Personal Demons, getting better, but is it too little too late? Find out in my review. And Mistborn, going really well. Really appreciating the audio and reading alongside the audio. Really appreciating both aspects there. If you have any comments, thoughts, and or questions that you would like to discuss with me about anything to do with my reading vlog for this week, please do leave them in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. I'm letting you guys go. Peace, blessings, and so much love. Mwah! And I'll see you next time. Bye, guys!